Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. It is going to be the January transfer roundup, the show where we sit down and we go through all of Everton's outgoings and incomings for the recent January transfer window, including our deadline day acquisition of Josh King. We're going to talk about all of the transfers. We're going to give them a little bit of a rating. We're going to talk about what transfers are good for the club, players leaving the club, of course, the likes of Cenk Tosun, Yannick Bolasie, Benny Beningame. We'll talk about the likes of John Joe Kenny, Anthony Gordon, Jarrett Branthwaite. We'll, of course, go on to talking about Josh King as well and that deal and how Josh King can come in and improve Everton Football Club going forward, certainly for the remainder of this season. And then if he does, whether he's going to have a future or not at the club because of the contract length, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in the video. We're joined by Cal today to go through all of this information. I said a couple of days ago, obviously, we've done the deadline day live stream. We've done a video when Josh King was announced, and I thought, you know what, let's sit down and let's talk about all of the transfer news, because there was a lot of outgoings on deadline day for Everton, a lot of players going out on loan, a lot of good loan moves for the club, and a lot, maybe a couple of loan moves where you're sort of thinking that would have been better if it was a permanent. So I wanted to sit down and talk about it as a whole and go through it all. We're joined by Cal today. Cal, how are you, mate? And just in general, I suppose, before we get into any of the the specifics and any of the specific transfers and deals that happened, how sort of satisfied are you with this January transfer window then? Do you think Marcel Brands and ultimately Everton have done a good job?
Yeah, I think we've done a good job. I think, obviously, if you look at the way the media have treated Arsenal for letting go of their crap, and they're getting praised in the media, it's getting said that they've had the best window, and we've done basically the same. We've let go of the players that haven't got a future at the club, and it's hard for them because they know they haven't got a future at the club. So it's better for not just the club, but it's good for both parties. The young players get to go out on loan and get more experience, and the players who don't have a future like Tosun, so they all get to go and get actual football in places where they want to be and where they deserve to be. You know what I mean? Where fans want to see them play. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good transfer window, and obviously with the incoming that we all know, I was quite chuffed when we got him.
Yeah, no, I agree, spot on, and like you said, we will go through the separate transfers, and you're right there about Arsenal. I was watching Sky Sports on deadline day. I don't watch Sky Sports because I don't particularly think they provide consistent, fair content surrounding all teams in the Premier League, but I was watching them on deadline day and watching their coverage, and I seen them mention Arsenal and Arsenal having the best transfer window for getting rid of some of those players that are sort of on the cusp of their first team, or getting rid of those players that haven't got a future at the football club. Loaning out those players on the cusp of the first team, trying to get some experience, and getting rid of those that sort of haven't got a future at all. And I was sort of listening to that thinking, well, that's pretty much what Everton have done, and as a whole, generally, look, I think it was a decent transfer window. What we have to understand about the January transfer window is Marcel Brands doesn't usually like to deal in the January transfer window. We've only seen a couple of signings since he's been at Everton Football Club during January. Jarrett Branthwaite was, I think, our only signing last January, obviously come in and had a big impact towards the end of the season, to be fair, but again, he'd come in initially to just be a player that goes in the under-23s and develops. So we haven't got certainly a recent history of a lot of business in January, certainly since Marcel Brands has come in, because it was quite known that he doesn't like dealing in the January transfer window. Add that to the fact that since Farhad Moshiri's been at Everton, I think he's been through 5, maybe even 6 January transfer windows. We've spent £25 million on Morgan Schneiderlin, who ultimately we sold for £2 million. It didn't work out, so we made a loss on Morgan Schneiderlin. Cenk Tosun, who we were now trying to get rid of and have done on loan, but ultimately wanted him to go on a permanent. He signed in January. Theo Walcott signed in January. Oumar Niasse signed in January, and I know a lot of people have got a lot of respect for Oumar Niasse, and that's fair enough, and he scored some important goals for Everton, but let's be honest, he wasn't worth the £13 million, even just financially, because he left on a free at the end of his contract. So I understand Everton's stance of, look, we're not just going to go out there and blast 40 odd million pounds on a specific player just for the sake of it. However, I also understand those fans that a couple of days ago were saying, well, look at how weak our squad is. Look at the Newcastle performance. We didn't have anything on the bench. Carlo Ancelotti's turning around, to look at the bench for attacking options because Richarlison's not having a great game, or Dominic Calvert-Lewin's not having a great game, and he's looking at Tom Davies and Anthony Gordon as the attacking options. Tom Davies, who isn't an attacker, and Anthony Gordon, who's still very, very raw. And there's no guarantee that he's going to come on and change a game. So I understood sort of both arguments, and I did lean towards going out and getting somebody and bringing somebody in, even if it was just somebody to freshen things up and add a different dynamic to this Everton team and bring us something that we don't expect. And recently, the performances, certainly going forward, do need to improve. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's, I think, 5 games without a Premier League goal. Now that needs to improve. He needs to get back on the score sheet. Richarlison, we know, I'm not going to go into specific players, but we know Richarlison needs to improve as well. James has been as creative as he usually is, but people haven't been getting on the end of those balls. We've had Luca Dean out for a sustained period of time. So I was absolutely made up with the Josh King deal, and we will go into specifically talking about that a little bit later on in the video. But let's talk about some of the outgoings first, Cal. I haven't done them in order because obviously I couldn't remember the order, basically. I remembered roughly. But I've grouped together a couple of players, or 3 players specifically, for the outgoings, in which I think sit in a different category to everybody else that's left the football club this past month, or last month, should we say now, as we are in February. And those 3 are Jarrad Branthwaite has joined Blackburn Rovers on a season-long loan, or on a loan until the end of the season, so a 6-month loan. Ellis Sims has joined Blackpool on a similar deal, and Anthony Gordon has joined Preston North, and that deal actually went through a couple of minutes prior to the Josh King deal, so really, really late on Monday evening. And the reason I've grouped these 3 players together is because the more we go into some of the other players that have left the football club, your likes of your Cenk Tosun, your likes of your John Joe Kenny, your Yannick Balassis, etc. You're looking at those players and you're thinking, certainly in the likes of Yannick Balassi and Cenk Tosun's case, you probably haven't got a long-term future at the football club. The questions are still about with John Joe Kenny, but I feel like John Joe fits into that category as well, to be honest. Sadly for John Joe, because obviously he's been at the club a long time, but I just don't think the club see him as a long-term replacement for Seamus Coleman. But Jarrad Branthwaite, Ellis Sims, Anthony Gordon, all very, very good, young, talented players that I don't think any Evertonian could have sat there and said, should have stayed at the football club. They all needed to go out and get some game time, specifically the likes of Jarrad Branthwaite, who obviously we've seen come into the first team towards the back end of last season after the lockdown period. He was absolutely exceptional for those 6 or 7 games that he featured in, brilliant. But then of course we went into pre-season and come into the new season, we signed Ben Godfrey. That partnership between Yerry Mina and Michael Keane really, really blossomed. You had, obviously Mason Holgate coming into the team and doing fantastically well as well. So Jarrad Branthwaite also had picked up an injury as well at the start of the season, which kept him out for I think the first 6 or 7, 8 games, something like that. And by the time he'd regained fitness, we'd already had an established centre-back partnership, and then a couple of other young players in Ben Godfrey and Mason Holgate to be the sort of replacement. So Jarrad Branthwaite was number 5, 6 in the centre-back sort of choices for Carlo Ancelotti, and it was absolutely the right decision for him to go out on loan, go down to the Championship with Blackburn and get some consistent football. And like I said, Cal, I've sort of grouped the 3 of them together in terms of that, because all 3, in terms of Branthwaite, Sims and Anthony Gordon, have got futures at the football club. They're all very, very bright, talented young players, but ultimately sitting on the bench on a match day or playing in the under-23s wasn't going to help progress their development, so they needed to go out on loan. Obviously we've seen Anthony Gordon go out to Preston on loan. We haven't seen him play there yet because he's only been there a couple of days. I think it's a fantastic move for Anthony Gordon. He'll get a lot of experience there. He'll hopefully play consistently week in, week out in a tough league in the Championship, where he's going to be playing a couple of times a week. It's a very demanding league, so it'll be really interesting to see how he does there. Obviously we've seen Jarrad Branthwaite drop down to the Championship as well with Blackburn Rovers, put in a man-of-the-match performance on his debut. Got into a little bit of a stare with Stephen Warnock because he nearly decapitated the Middlesbrough player with a high foot, but it was only an accident. I think he won man-of-the-match as well in the most recent game. And we've seen Ellis Sims drop down to League One with Blackpool. He scored a couple of goals on his League One debut, coming off the bench with 5 or 10 minutes to go, and scored 2 goals within 4 minutes of each other. So in terms of the 3 players, Cal, for me anyway, I don't know whether you agree, absolutely fantastic moves for all 3. 3 really, really good, talented young players. More so Anthony Gordon and Jarrad Branthwaite, who of course have had more first team experience than Ellis Sims, but it was absolutely essential that those 3 dropped down and got some experience, wasn't it? Because again, as good as the under-23s is, let's be perfectly honest, it's not the situation and the surroundings for players like Jarrad Branthwaite and Ellis Sims to develop, and certainly sitting on the bench and coming on for 5 or 10 minutes in the odd game isn't the place for Anthony Gordon to develop either. So do you agree with me then? Do you think those 3 loan deals are fantastic for those 3 players?
Yeah, I think they are. I think it's going to do all three of them well. I think certainly for Branthwaite, you put up a good point. He's kind of fell down the pecking order at Everton because of the Ben Godfrey signing. And I know Godfrey, we haven't really seen him at centre back, but obviously, I think when you've been probably our most consistent player this season, Carlo's not going to pick somebody who's been injured for 6, 7 weeks over someone who's been almost, again, like I said, almost consistent player. And I think when it comes to Anthony Gordon, we know Gordon's got the quality. I
Yeah,
just don't think he's ready.
yeah,
And I think, again, I think he's a great player. I think he's a great technical player. I just think he needs experience, and he's not going to get game time over Richarlison, James, and we know Alex Iwobi's come in and been very good this year.
yeah,
And even Bernard seems to be above him in the pecking order. And I just think Carlo doesn't really trust him because he's young and he is rash and he does rash things sometimes. But again, a good loan move to Preston where he can improve and get better, and I think he will. And then Ellis Sims, I think that just makes sense because, like, I know a lot of Everton fans say, why don't we throw him in? But he's young.
yeah,
He's only really young, and playing him in the Premier League, it doesn't always work. Like we've seen, you know what I mean? There's like that, what was his name, Adam Connolly or something from Brighton. They
yeah,
played him. He was only young. They played him. He scored a few goals early on, and then I don't think he scored since 10 goals against Tottenham or something crazy like that.
yeah.
So it is one of them where you can play them, and if they have a few bad months, sometimes they just don't recover. So
Yeah,
sending him on loan to Blackpool, where it's a physical game, he'll come back even more physical, even more experienced, and he'll have a bit of an attitude on him because you've got to succeed in the lower leagues. You've got to have that attitude and determination
that's
in
it.
them lower leagues. I think he'll come back a better player, but I think what's going to help him is we don't know the Josh King situation, if he's going to stay in the summer or if he's going to go to another team because it's only a 6 month contract. But it looks like Moise Keane's going to go. So it
Yeah.
looks like Sims has a good chance, if he does well at Blackpool, has a good chance of becoming a number two striker in the summer, depending on the other players.
Yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely spot on. Like you mentioned there, it's three very, very good deals for three very, very good young players, and there's no doubt in the talent and the ability and certainly the promise and the potential of somebody like an Ellis Sims. I mean, his goal scoring record for the under-23s and the under-18 speaks for itself, but Sims specifically, he's 19 years old now. He's not as young as maybe some of us think we were. I was surprised by that. I went onto his profile the other day expecting to still see this 17-year-old kid ripping it up. He's not. He's 19 years old now, and I know that's still very, very young, and I'm not trying to put pressure on Ellis Sims or put pressure on Everton Football Club to, get him in the first team tomorrow, because obviously that's not how things work, and he does need that experience, and he is still very, very raw, and he needs to work on certain parts of his game, and ultimately that's why he's gone out to Blackpool on loan. But again, like I said, there are a lot of players in and around that age of 19 years old that are playing in the top leagues. Look at Moise Keane, for example. I know it hasn't gone very well at Everton, but he is, around about the same age, maybe a little bit older than Ellis Sims, and he'd come into the Premier League, he'd come into Everton's first team, he's now playing for PSG. So I think it was exactly the right move for Ellis Sims. I don't think another 6 months in the under-23s would have done him, he wouldn't have developed there. Yes, he'd have still played and he would still score goals and his fitness would have been up, but it wouldn't have been a challenge for him. He's
It wouldn't have been good for us though,
Yeah, true.
because we've seen your good young strikers like Fraser Hornby, who were good players, Kieran Dowell, and we've kept them kind of rotten in the youth teams. And then when we don't, certainly Fraser Hornby, we let him kind of rot in the youth teams, and then we just sold him. There's been a lot of that. Obviously, we've let a lot of young strikers go that looked good in the youth system, and we've just let them go instead of just sending them out on loan. We've sold them instead of just giving them a chance. And I think this is the perfect chance. This is the perfect way for Sims. A lot of people were saying again, like the whole we haven't got another striker, but I don't think he's ready to make that jump from under 23s to the Premier League. I think this is the best move for him, I think, and the best move for the club.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I was just about to say I agree completely, mate. The deals are fantastic for all parties, not just for the players, but for Everton, for the clubs that they're going to, and for the players themselves. You brought up a really, really good point there about the likes of Fraser Hornby, and we've seen so many players over the years, Kieran Dowell being one of them. I remember Ryan Ledson broke through Conor McAleny, who you're seeing constantly, and you're told every 5 minutes, watch this lad in the 23s, watch this lad in the 18s, he's going to break through, he's going to be the next big thing, and then they don't get there, move into the first
Morgan
team.
Feeney
Was
Feeney,
another one. Morgan Feeney.
We all thought we got a future starting centre back, and then he went on loan to Tranmere, and he only played I think 3 games there, and apparently he wasn't that good.
Yeah.
And I think he's at Sunderland now. Yeah. So I think we need to take better care of the younger players as well. I think that's something that we've only just started doing. Is
Yeah,
taking more care of the younger players.
Yeah, no, I agree completely, and it's all about getting the right loan move. Loan moves were vitally important for me for Branthwaite, for Sims, and for Gordon this year. More so Branthwaite and Sims, because we didn't know whether Gordon would still be a member of the first team. I think that was all dependent on the Josh King deal. But it's all about the right loan move. It's all good getting a loan move for a young player and having them drop down to the Championship. But if they're going to go and play for a club that is going to keep them on the bench every week and effectively do what they were doing at Everton and maybe bring them on in the last 10 minutes or play them in cup competitions, then it's not worth it. The reason that we're sending these young players on loan is so that they're getting that experience. Look at Mason Holgate a couple of years ago. Mason Holgate obviously went out to West Bromwich Albion on loan in the Championship, played the majority of their season consistently week in, week out in the Championship, played at right back, which I think is part and parcel of the reason as to why we're seeing him a lot at right back at the moment. There's no coincidence that Mason Holgate is a preferred right back alternative to Seamus Coleman now. There's no coincidence that the reason he is that preferred right back is because of that because of that game time at West Brom and that consistency playing in that position. That, he's a fine example of a player who went out on loan, was given that trust by his manager, was given that playing time consistently, and was allowed to play week in, week out in the Championship in a tough league, in a battling league, and he's come back to the Premier League and he looked like
Look
such
what
an
it did
improved
for him,
player.
though.
That's what I'm saying.
Because he used to lose his head so much. I remember the game at Anfield when him and Firmino had that little to do, and he offloaded and pushed them into the stands. He's had it a few times where I also think playing next to Ashley Williams didn't help him.
Yeah,
but
too.
I think he's come back, and we didn't like him at right back. Even when he was on loan, we always said he's going to come back and be a centre back because we didn't like him at right back. He's come back. He's played central defensive midfield. He's played in the midfield. He's played in defence. He's played at right back. He's played at right wing back. So there's 3-4 positions where he's playing.
Yeah,
and he's really matured, and he's a good player. I really rate Holgate. I think it's always one of them loan deals certainly to the Championship and the League One is, no matter what, they're gonna come back fitter, stronger. Yeah. It's one of them. Physically, it does them the way because you've got to bulk up to play in the Championship. You've got to be bulking up because the teams are so physical. And it's such a demanding league because there's 46 games a season.
That's it. That was exactly going to be my point next, mate. I was literally about to say the likes of Branthwaite and Anthony Gordon specifically, and Ellis Sims, because in League One you play a lot of games as well, is the fact that if they're given that trust by their managers and they're allowed to play week in, week out, and they break into, the teams, Anthony Gordon breaks into Preston, Jared Branthwaite's already broken into the Blackburn team. I mean, he won man of the match on his debut. I think he won man of the match in their most recent game as well. Then, they're going to continue to be playing, continue to be performing, and it is very much 2 games a week in the Championship. So Jared Branthwaite will come back to Everton in the summer, and Everton might look at Jared Branthwaite and go, right, okay, you've had a brilliant loan, your development's gone fantastically, but you're probably still not ready to break into this Everton team, and we've still got Godfrey, or we've still got Mina and Keane, so we're going to send you out again on loan. It's all about development, and I just think Branthwaite sitting on the bench for Everton on a weekend, or playing the odd under-23s game, Ellis Sims playing in the under-23s, Gordon playing in the under-23, Gordon sitting on the bench and coming on in the odd 10-15 minutes of a Premier League game isn't doing their development any good. Whereas sending these young lads on loan, albeit, okay, weakens the squad a little bit, and that's why I think it was, a necessity that we brought in somebody like Josh King, but sending those lads on loan to sides that are going to play them, that are going to give them that opportunity, like you mentioned before, mate, it's fantastic for everybody. It's brilliant for the players because all of that sort of frustration that's built up by not playing consistent game time or playing in the under-23s where they may be thinking, you know what, I should be playing professional football here, I should be in one of the top leagues. It's brilliant for the player because they'll get that game time. It's brilliant for Everton because they're going out and they're getting experience elsewhere. Like you said, they're playing in tough, hard, physical leagues that will make them better footballers, as evidently seen by Mason Holgate's development at West Brom. And it's good for, obviously, the clubs that they're going to. Blackburn have obviously, had a fantastic last couple of games, and Jared Branthwaite's had a couple of really good performances, so they've benefited. Preston will benefit from having somebody like an Anthony Gordon and his quality and his ability on the ball, and, Blackpool have benefited from Ellis Sims so far, who scored 2 goals on his debut. One yesterday, he did play Ellis Sims, but he didn't, he got brought off, I think, as a substitute in the 60th, 70th minute, didn't score, but again, already got 2 goals for Blackpool, just showing how how good he is. And it's also a good gauge for us fans. You know, we might sit here at the end of the season and look at Jarrad Branthwaite and think he's been absolutely exceptional. We might talk to some Blackburn fans and they might say, yeah, he's unbelievable, mate. He's a level ahead of anybody in the league. And that wouldn't surprise me, because Jarrad Branthwaite didn't look uncomfortable when he was playing Premier League football towards the back end of last season for Everton. He looked absolutely fantastic. For a young lad who'd been playing League 1, League 2 football only 6-8 months before, he looked absolutely fantastic in those remaining 6 or 7 games of the season. So that wouldn't surprise me. I'd love to hear from Preston fans at the end of the season. Maybe that's an idea for, a little bit off topic, but maybe that's an idea for a video on the channel, to bring a Preston fan on and say, listen, talk to me about Anthony Gordon, because I'd love for them to say, yeah, he rips it up week in, week out, he's been brilliant. It'll also give the players that confidence as well. So I think we're both in agreement, Cal, that the deals for Branthwaite, Sims and Gordon are fantastic, and ultimately, you know, really, really good for all parties, the club, the player, the club that they're going to, and it allows them to go out and get some much needed experience, much needed game time, and, you know, they'll come back to Everton in the summer with that experience and as better players, hopefully, if they're given that sort. We know Branthwaite already has been, we know Sims already has been. I just hope it's the same for Anthony Gordon, because if you look at it, yes, Jarrad Branthwaite, you know, Branthwaite and Sims both need the game time and they both need the experience, of course they do, but, you know, the likelihood is that Ellis Sims will probably come back to Everton in the summer and we might look at him and we might go, right, you need another loan deal. We might say, you can go in the first team now, you can be a member of the first team squad, but we might say, right, you need another loan deal. Same with Branthwaite, we might look at him and go, right, you're good enough to be in the first team, or we might say, well, we've still got Mina, Keane, Godfrey, Holgate, so you're going to go out again. Whereas Anthony Gordon, you feel like this is a fantastic loan move for him, but it's a loan move where if he does have a really, really good season and he does impress and he grows and he becomes more physical and he sort of fixes up on the little things that he needs to work on, then he will be a fully fledged member of the first team squad next season. So it's massively important that Anthony Gordon gets that development, and I can't wait to see how he does. Moving on then to another loan deal, mate. Pretty much every player that left Everton this January transfer window was a loan, other than Jonas Leersel, who left for free to join his ex-football club. We'll talk about that in a second. But moving on to another loan deal, John Joe Kenny obviously joined Celtic on loan. There were strong rumours that he would join Burnley on a permanent deal, but apparently that fell through due to Everton and Burnley not being able to agree a deal for John Joe. He did sign for Celtic on loan on deadline day, played yesterday for them, literally just over 24 hours after joining. And I did see an article in a newspaper that stated he got man of the match. I don't know whether that was just that specific person's man of the match or that was the official man of the match. But he seemed to do well on his debut. They won massively against Kilmarnock, I believe. John Joe's a bit of a different one, isn't it, Cal? Because personally, I feel that, you know, John Joe's future at the football club probably isn't looking very, very good. I think if we could have got rid of him on a permanent for maybe £6 to £10 million this January transfer window, we would have. Ultimately, we couldn't, so we've loaned him out to, I suppose, get his wages off the wage bill. But I think come the summer, it's not going to be a case of bring John Joe back into the club and maybe he'll get, you know, a first team opportunity. Obviously, he had that loan at Schalke last season. He come back, he was given the number 2. Carlo Ancelotti preferred, you know, a natural centre back in Mason Holgate at right back over John Joe Kenny. So do you think this is just sort of a move for John Joe to go to Celtic and maybe to impress in the Scottish League for them to then come in with a bid in the summer? And ultimately, I suppose, would you have liked to have seen John Joe go out on a permanent? Because it would have been better for him as well. Look, as much as he might be an Evertonian and he might have been here since he was a kid, there's no point in the lad sitting on the bench week in, week out, or playing the odd cup game and, you know, wasting his career away. He may as well go and play football somewhere else where he's going to be playing consistently. So what did you feel on the John Joe Kenny's move to Celtic?
I think it made sense because I like Kenny because he is a toffee and you can see he does fight. He just hasn't got the quality.
Yeah.
And I think it's what 3 managers now that, you know, Sam Allardyce didn't really use him. Silva in Silva's first season didn't really like take a liking to him, and obviously Ancelotti really hasn't took a liking to him, it seems, because you've got Seamus Coleman playing there, who, in my opinion, had a good start to the season. Yeah. But I think his legs have already gotten the best of him already, and we're only in February, funny enough, sorry. And I think Holgate's just 10 times the player Kenny is. I think Nkunku, I know he hasn't played at right back, but I think Ancelotti would prefer Nkunku at right back, and I think he'd prefer small as well. So there's 4 players, and 2 of them are younger than Kenny, and Ancelotti probably prefers both of them over him.
Yeah,
he hasn't really he hasn't done anything that's special, and we gave him a go against Blackpool in the pre-season, and he was awful. He was terrible, and that's the problem. People say, like, it's annoying because a lot of Liverpool fans make out like the games in like the League Cup don't matter against the Salford or against Fleetwood, but they
Yeah,
do. For players like a John Joe Kenny, who is on the way out, and it was rumoured even in October that he was on his way out, they're the games for them kind of players where if they step up, then Ancelotti gets impressed and he knows that you're fighting for your
yeah,
place. And that's why Sigurdsson's still here, because as much as he's not got the quality, he still does well in them kind of games. In the games where he's got to prove himself, in the cups he does prove himself in them kind of games. Yeah, I don't want him at Everton. I don't think he's good enough, but he does. Tosin did it in the cups. I'm thinking Tosin got a few goals in the cup.
yeah.
Kenny doesn't show up in any of the games for us, so I think I would have preferred a deal to sell him to Burnley, but I think a loan deal to Celtic, I don't see him staying either way. So I think it's going to go either way. It's either Celtic buy him in the summer or he just goes to Burnley on a permanent, because I do not see us keeping him. I just don't understand. And there's rumours of Max Aarons coming in, or Max Aarons or that Celik from Lille, which means Kenny becomes fourth, fifth, maybe even sixth down the pecking order.
Yeah.
Which when like four of the players aren't even natural right backs and Ancelotti prefers to play them, it's just not looking good for him. I don't think he's going to stay, and I wouldn't want him to stay. I think he's a good player. I think he's a good Championship player. I just don't think he's a Premier League player.
Yeah, no, like you said there, I agree. And you mentioned there about Gylfi Sigurdsson, and Gylfi Sigurdsson's a player similar with Tom Davies, who has split a lot of opinion surrounding Evertonians this season as to whether or not he's good enough and whether or not he should be in the team. And we all have these different opinions about your Gomez's or your Tom Davies or your Gylfi Sigurdsson's. But one thing that is those three players have in common, and that's that Carlo Ancelotti very clearly likes them. And Carlo Ancelotti's been vocal in his praise for Tom Davies. He said he does everything that he wants him to do. He's done really, really well when he stepped in, and he'll play consistently. He said that with Gylfi Sigurdsson. He said, I'm happy with Gylfi Sigurdsson. I'm happy with where he's playing. I'm happy with his performances. Gylfi Sigurdsson's come out and said the manager's happy with me performances and the way I'm playing. He's done it with Andre Gomez. He hasn't done that with John Joe Kenny, and I'm not expecting Carlo Ancelotti to come out and say, no, John Joe's not very good and he's not going to be in this team. But like you mentioned there, his team selection says it all. There's been a number of times this season where Seamus Coleman's needed to come out, or he hasn't looked fit, or we've needed the replacements at right back, and Carlo has preferred Mason Holgate, and rightly so. I agree with that decision. I think Mason's a better defender than John Joe Kenny. I think Mason's more solid defensively than John Joe, and I think John Joe has still got some issues that he had 12 months ago at Schalke, certainly positional wise. We haven't seen a lot of him this season, so it's hard to judge him off of this season because we haven't seen an awful lot of him. We've only seen him in the odd cup game or coming off the bench in the odd 10 minutes, but I agree.
It was the Newcastle game that he started, weren't it? He started the Newcastle game.
I can't even remember, mate, did he?
The one when we lost 2-1 at St James's Park. That was awful, that game.
Everyone, that mad formation.
Yeah, to be fair, everyone wasn't good in that game, but it's like a lot of people probably say in the comments, but nobody was good in them games, but it doesn't matter. World-class managers want players who might not even be good, might be awful at football, but if they're going to go and they're going to try and prove themselves, he wants players that want to prove themselves.
Yeah.
Kenny seems like the player, and when we played like the Salfords and the lower league team, he just doesn't look arsed. He looks like he's a good lad. He's obviously he's a Scouse, he's an Everton fan, but I just don't think he's got the quality in. And I think, again, like I said, in these cup games, you've got to prove yourself. You've got to do something. Even if it's just making a really good last-ditch tackle, it impresses the coach. You know what I mean? Look at, as much as we don't like them, look at a lot of the Liverpool youngsters, that Curtis Jones. Every time he's in a cup game, he impresses.
Yeah.
That Nico Williams does it. You've got to impress in these games. You've got to impress the manager.
Yeah.
And when you're not impressing the manager... And also, look, he went on loan to Schalke, and he failed at Schalke as well. And yeah, Schalke are awful, but it's still, you know what I mean, when you're going on loan, he was what we've done to Gordon and Branthwaite to get him experience and to get him game time.
Yeah.
And he went over there, and like we spoke about it, funny enough, like last May, some of the ratings, the match ratings that he was getting was like 3s and 2s.
Yeah.
For like consistently, and I'd love for him to do well. I would love for him to do well. But I don't think he will, and I think it's just best for both parties now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the simple thing with John Joe Kenny ultimately is that listen, he's not good enough, whether we like it or not. He's not good enough. Carlo Ancelotti clearly thinks he's not good enough, and that's shown by team selection, substitutes, and I've from what I've seen from John Joe, certainly, like I said, he's only played on a couple of occasions this season, but he just hasn't been good enough. And I think the club, we're looking to move him on a permanent deal. I said this on Monday's deadline day last year. We can't sell players unless teams want to buy, and I think this was the occasion with John Joe. Burnley were interested but didn't want to pay the fee that Everton wanted. Everton weren't going to be bullied out of the transfer, so ultimately he didn't go there, and he's gone out to Celtic on loan. And I suppose the hope is for Everton and for John Joe himself is that he has a really good season over in the Scottish League at Celtic, and then maybe they pop up with a £7-8 million bid to keep him, and Everton take that and he can go and further his career in a much easier league. But yeah, I agree. I think that's the long and short of it with John Joe. He's gone out on loan. I think the reality is he hasn't got a future at Everton, which maybe he's sad because he's been here a long time, but ultimately that's it is what it is, isn't it? So on to the other few players. Jonas Leisel joined FC Midtjylland on a permanent deal. There's not much to say about that. Joined Everton, of course, under Marco Silva. I feel like every time a new manager comes into a football club, certainly with Everton, they bring a goalkeeper. It's like, they bring a player that they've known and worked with before. Martin Stekelenburg come in with Ronald Koeman. I never got
that signing, though.
But yeah, same.
I just never got that.
Jonas Leisel come in with Silva, didn't he? And Ancelotti obviously brought Olsen in.
I thought if Silva's going to bring in a keeper, it'd be like that Gomez, the Brazilian keeper, or a Ben Foster, someone who he used at Watford, but he didn't. He brought in Leisel, and I don't even think he's played. Honestly, I can't remember if he's played.
He has played a couple of cup games, but he hasn't played a Premier League game, because I remember when Robin Olsen come in a few weeks back for Jordan Pickford. That was the first time Jordan Pickford hadn't played in a Premier League game since the Sunderland days. So listen, the Leisel deal is what it is. He was, I think he was free to leave in the summer anyway. His contract was up, and he's joined his old club of FC Midtjylland. So best of luck to Jonas Leisel, of course. Again, like I said, no bad blood whatsoever. The odd occasion that he did step in cup competitions, he done okay. There was a big shout for him to have a run in the first team instead of Jordan when Jordan was going through a rough patch, but ultimately that didn't happen, and he's left the football club. But the other three players that left on deadline day, Yannick Bolasie joining Middlesbrough on loan, Cenk Tosun joining Besiktas on loan, and Benny Beningame joining Derby on loan. I feel like these three are sort of grouped in a category as well, probably with John Joe Kenny, to be honest with you, of three players that we would have preferred to have gotten rid of on a permanent deal, but the money wasn't there, so we had to loan them out. I think Yannick Bolasie's contract's up in the summer, if I'm not mistaken, so he'll leave the football club anyway now. Again, for me, that deal's best for all parties. Yannick to go out and get some game time and actually play some football. He's a decent lad, Yannick Bolasie, but he was never going to have a future at Everton Football Club, and ultimately all of the stuff on social media, a couple of tweets that he put out about not signing with the first team, I just think it was a little bit unprofessional. He put out a tweet about Seamus Coleman as well, which on the long short of it, it shows Seamus in a really, really good light, but it's those type of things that clubs don't want, leaking to the public eye. Maybe Yannick just done it out of, the warmth of his heart, and he didn't mean any malicious by it, but I think it's best for both parties for Yannick to move on. He's moved to Middlesbrough, of course, on loan for the rest of the season. Cenk Tosun has moved back to Besiktas, which is the worst kept secret in football, for about 3 days, when he was posting pictures of himself in Besiktas gear and on a private jet with Besiktas flags everywhere, and it wasn't announced until deadline day. And then Benny Beningame has joined Derby. Look, in Benny's case, for me, I just feel like Benny needs to leave on a permanent now. There's not going to be a chance of him getting in the first team. There was a period last season where our midfield looked absolutely atrocious. Obviously, before Decore come in, before Alan come in, it was absolutely abysmal. And Carlo Ancelotti had the opportunity to bring John Joe Kenny into the first team, and he didn't. So very clearly doesn't favour him. He's getting to an age now where he really needs to be going and playing consistent football, and just continuing to loan him out and playing in the under-23s isn't doing good for him whatsoever. So I would have liked to have seen Benny Beningame leave on a permanent to go and further his career somewhere else, because again, he seemed like a decent lad, but he hasn't. He's gone out on loan, and then Cenk Tosun gone out to Besiktas on loan as well. Do you sort of sit with me with the Cenk Tosun one, Carl, which is, look, the ideal situation would have been to get some money back for him, sell him on a permanent and wash our hands of that sort of situation. But like I said before, you can only sell players for transfer fees if clubs want to pay. And I suppose the benefit of Cenk Tosun going to Besiktas is that, well, I don't know where the wage structure sits. I assume they'll be paying his wages, but also if he has a good season there, or good rest of the season, which is very, very possible, then they'll come in with a permanent bid in the summer and take him back.
Yeah, I think certainly when it comes to Benny, I think Benny's a great player. I think well, when we saw him, he was good in them. I think it was the cup game against Chelsea, and I think we played him in the league against Leicester
Yeah,
as well under Unsworth, and I think he did himself well. But I just again, I don't think he's that. I think when we watched him as well, he's really slow. And I think in an Ancelotti midfield, we've got Gomez and Delph and Sigurdsson who are already very, very slow.
yeah,
So adding another slow player in there doesn't work. And now we've got Alan who's well. Alan's amazing. He absolutely is world class. And Decore's incredible. Decore's looked great. I don't. It's felt to start Decore, but I think certainly the last few games he's matured and become the player he was like at Watford.
yeah,
He really looks the player. And I think in Benny's case, he's one of them players where you just want like John Joe. They haven't got a future at the club, so let's just hopefully go to the right club where, again, like I said before, where the fans will be happy to see them there and they're happy, because I don't think Benny's happy in the position, because I've got the results up from last year when we lost to Tottenham. I remember we did a preview for that game and
yeah,
we said we have to win in midfield. He played, I think, Gomez and Sigurdsson and Davis, and then there was that meme, weren't he, of them three all in the left side of the corner
yeah,
flag and our
yeah,
whole midfield empty. And
yeah,
that wasn't even a joke, or they hadn't even cropped anything out. That was actually all three of them was in the same position. And then again, we played Southampton. Benny could have played there, no. And then after that, well, after the Tottenham game, our Europa League hopes were finished.
yeah,
We didn't play him against Wolves. We didn't play him against Villa. In a meaningless game against Sheffield and Bournemouth on the last day, he never even got on the bench. So I think that just proves that he was never going to feature at Goodison or at Everton again. And even in the cup games, he hasn't featured,
yeah,
which I would have preferred, or him over at Delph, because he wants to play for us. He wants to show passion. So I'd rather have him there over Delph. And I think with when you said about Tosin, I think Tosin's a player that he just hasn't worked out.
yeah,
It's not down to him. It's not down to him being. He's not done anything wrong. I don't think. I just don't think he's a player. I think he'd be a good player for a West Brom or a
yeah.
Burnley. I just think our system, which is very fast in transition, your striker needs to be very mobile, very good with the ball. Cenk's not really mobile and he's not the quickest. So I think in an Ancelotti team, he slows down the play and certainly on the transition.
Yeah.
Where under an Allardyce, he was good under Allardyce. We thought when Silva took over, we don't need a striker because we've got Cenk. And then Cenk he didn't really hit the ground running under Silva. And then with Ancelotti, to be fair, Ancelotti gave him goals, he gave
Yeah.
him good games, and he's brought him on and he hasn't really done anything
Yeah.
in them games and made an impact. So again, I wish him the best. A lot of people were angry when he was putting Besiktas pictures up, but again, that's his home, innit? So
That's how they do transfers as
loves
well, don't they?
and
They release all of the
look
stuff
at look at
beforehand.
look at the tweet, the likes you got on your tweet when it said Tosin was going to Besiktas.
Yeah.
They love him. Dude,
Yeah.
he's like their Ronaldo.
Yeah.
So that's a good decision, I think. I don't think there's anything wrong with that decision whatsoever. I think it just makes utter sense. I think he had to go, didn't he?
Yeah.
And when it comes to Balassi, to the Balassi point, like you said, he seems like a good person. Our whole squad, other than Delph, seems like good guys,
Yeah.
nice people. I just think Balassi again. I think if he never had them injuries, I still think he'd be an Everton player. And I think he could be a star. I think that injury under Koeman.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was detrimental
It wasn't
to his
even
career.
down to. It wasn't even down to that declined him. It was just he kind of fell down the pecking order because Allardyce signed Theo Walcott, and then Koeman came in and signed Bernard Richarlison. They're two players that he's not as good as, and then he signed Moise Kean, who could play on the wing, and then Ancelotti signed James, and we've got a Wobie, so he doesn't have a future. He's not, in my opinion, I don't think he would have started over Gordon, and so again he's another one that just doesn't have a future at the club, and he's going to Middlesbrough, which for them is probably a big deal because they're in the Championship and he's a Premier League player and he does have the experience and he'll probably help them in a few games.
Yeah.
Again, he's just one of them players. He just kind of got forgotten about. Like he was a bit like a Luke Garbutt in a sense.
Yeah.
Like we even forgot he was here. We even forgot
Yeah.
Balassi was here. To be honest,
Yeah.
at the end of last, we weren't like. I remember, as horrible as it probably sounds, when he came back from his injury, none of us were jumping for joy. We weren't like, "Oh, great, he's back." We were like, "Oh, he's back. Good on him." So I think. And it makes sense, and obviously when we loaned them out to Sport, and I think that kind of proved. And also when we're playing when Silva played Sigurdsson on the wing, I think it was like Norwich or something. I think that kind of proves that Balassi's done.
Yeah.
When you're getting out, when people like Sigurdsson and players like our player getting played on the wing, and again, there's not much to say about Balassi. He's a good player. He's a good lad, but I don't think he's again got the quality.
Yeah.
And I think I don't want to over talk, but I just want to like move on to a point with Marcel. I think a lot of people give him stick, but a lot of people don't realise to sign players, you've got to offload players because our
Yeah,
squad is massive.
yeah,
Ancelotti said, didn't he, in the transfer window in August, September, and October, I wanted to sign more players, but we couldn't do it
yeah.
because the squad is too big, and
Financial
he's on.
fair play as
You've
well.
got to you've got to think Bolassi's on a lot of money. Bolassi's got to be on over 80 grand a week. I'm sorry, he's got to be.
Yeah,
He's on because he was when he signed, he was quite a big name, and a lot of clubs wanted him. Same with same with Tosin. We probably gave Tosin a few. He's probably on a few a week,
yeah,
and so it's probably, to be honest, I think to get Tosin off and Bolassi were probably big on the wages as well. It's going
yeah.
to do wonders for the club. And again, like I said, them players, Tosin, Tosin, Balassi, Benigami, Larsel, they're just players that I think every Everton fan will tell you.
Yeah,
It's nice to see. Hopefully, they're happy again,
yeah,
and they are where they want to be, because fans don't. And we've not got an agenda against them. They're just not good enough, and
yeah.
I
That's
just
it.
don't think they belong here. I don't think a lot of them are. I think again, Tosin's he's a good lower league player where he'll get you six. Where I don't want to disrespect West Brom at all or a Burnley, but they're a good 6 goal season striker, 7 goal a
Yeah,
season striker.
yeah. No,
But I
that's
think
it.
when
I
you're
agree.
at us, and when you've got to compete with Calvert-Lewin, who's on, I know he hasn't scored recently, but he's absolutely world class. He's in world class. He's had a world class year. 15 goals, 17 or 18 goals for club and country. You're not going to start over that when you can't score consistently off the bench, and
Yeah.
that's the problem.
That's it. No, I agree, absolutely, completely, mate. I agree. I think, it's right move for all parties. Cenk wanted to play football and ultimately isn't good enough to play in this Everton team, so it's the right move to move him on. Same with Yannick Balassi and Benny Beningame again. Hopefully he can get that permanent move in the summer. Let's go into ins then. That is all the outs, of course, mostly loan deals other than Jonas Lazel. Everton did bring in Josh King from Bournemouth on a 6-month deal, not a loan deal, a 6-month permanent deal for a very, very nominal fee, which was said, the Athletic believe it to be a lot less than the first reported £5 million, which is fantastic. And I think this deal pretty much makes our January for me. We desperately were in need of some cover for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. We desperately were in need of another option up front, another striking option, somebody to come in and add a bit of dynamism, add a bit of pace, add a bit of energy into this Everton squad. And Josh King does that. Look, there was a heavy rumour surrounding Josh King last year, and even earlier on in this transfer window was to state we might pay £15-20 million for him. He might come in on a 4-year contract. And I was looking at that thinking, for a lad in the last 6 months of his current contract, I don't want to be paying £15-20 million for him, and I certainly don't want to be giving players 5 or 6 year deals or 4 or 5 year deals, whatever it might be. But I think this deal is fantastic for all parties. Fantastic for Josh King, fantastic for Everton. Maybe not so fantastic for Bournemouth, but who cares? But I think Marcel Brands deserves real plaudits for this deal, because ultimately he's brought Josh King in for 6 months. If it doesn't work out, he can leave in the summer. If it does work out, then hopefully he can sign an extension and continue to be here. Josh King is going to want to get his head down and work hard, because effectively it is a glorified sort of loan. It's not a loan move, but he's only here for 6 months. So if he wants to sign on again in the summer, he's going to have to impress. And also, I'm sick of the days where we give these players, and again, this isn't any disrespect to Josh King, but I'm sick of the days where we just go and throw 3, 4, 5-year contracts out to anybody, and then in 12 months we sit there and think, we want to sell them now, and we can't sell them because they've got years left on the contract and they're not in the first team, or they're not impressing, and then they're just there racking up the wage bill. And I'm not saying that Josh King will do that, but we saw a very cautious deal with James Rodriguez in the summer. We brought him in for 2 years with an option for a third, which Everton 5 years ago wouldn't have done that with a last 5-year contract at him. Again, same with Josh King, brought him in for 6 months. Again, if it doesn't work out, he can leave in the summer. If it does work out, then hopefully he'll sign an extension, and I think it was exactly what we needed. It allowed Anthony Gordon to go out on loan, which I think is fantastic for Anthony Gordon. He brings dynamism, he brings pace, and he brings something different. He brings an option. We've been very, very one-dimensional front in recent weeks. Dom hasn't really been, getting the opportunities and hasn't been scoring. Richarlison's been struggling. James has done okay, but again, has been struggling to create because we haven't really been free-flowing going forward. And like I said on last Saturday, Carlo Ancelotti looked to his bench. He was looking to, Anthony Gordon, he was looking to Tom Davis, and he was thinking, I don't really, trust that either of you can come on and change this game. And there was no attacking option, whereas Josh King does bring that attacking threat and that attacking option. So what did you make of Josh King coming in on deadline day, of course, and adding to Carlo Ancelotti's squad for the rest of the season?
I think it's a great. He's a great player, and I think it's a good signing because
Yeah.
it's not what there's no strings attached in a way with this signing. Because if he doesn't do well, then we can let him go in the summer, like you said. But if he does amazing, then we can offer him a new contract. So it's a win-win really for us, and I think he will do well. You know what I mean? His record at Bournemouth. Nothing against Bournemouth, but they're not a good. They've not got the attackers we've got. You know, he's gonna have James putting the ball into him, Luca Digne. You know, even Gylfi can put a good ball in, so he's gonna have a lot of service in the attack. So you know what I mean. And again, I think the fans wanted the signing no matter what, and I think we needed a signing because I think. Again, a lot of people say, "Oh, we don't have squad depth," but it's like, no offense to the players who've gone, but they didn't do anything when they came on anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not really a loss in them players going. So we've got someone who can come on. He's got bags of pace, and we haven't really got that up front. For me, Richarlison's not he's quick, but he's not someone that can cause defense a problem. Because he doesn't really beat men a lot. He can't really beat a man on the wing. He's good, but he can't. He's not a Josh King. He's not a Zaha. Someone with that kind of skillful talent.
Yeah.
Them two have got they're very flashy kind of players. Certainly Josh King is. So I think to bring in Josh King and honestly, I can see him starting over Richarlison, to be honest. Yeah. Because I think if Richarlison doesn't get his head sorted, I think Richarlison could go to the bench because he hasn't been good enough.
Yeah,
he really hasn't.
Yeah, I agree, and Richarlison does need to start picking up that form again, and he does need to sort of get back amongst the goals, which ultimately is what he wants, and that's why you've been seeing Richarlison, probably not looking as happy recently, is because he wants to get amongst the goals, he wants to be creating, he wants to be that outlet, and I do think he'll get back to that stage as well.
Do you know what we have got for the first time, for me, in a long time? We've got a little shit. He's a little shit. Josh King, someone who's gonna piss defenders off. Like Neil Maupay does it perfectly at Brighton. Neil Maupay is he does it so well. Look what he did to Arsenal. He's made Arsenal have a bloody clear out because he pissed off Guendouzi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Josh King is that kind of player because he's physically strong and he will annoy defenders. He does go down sometimes, a bit easy, but that annoys defenders because they know, and then it leaves that thought in the back of the mind. That's why Zaha's so good. Is if I touch him, he's going to go down. They're going to give a penalty.
Yeah.
So what do we do? Then also, not that, you've got to think. I know we didn't have a good last season at Bournemouth, but again, did anyone really? It was the last season in the league. You've got to think Josh King got 16 goals in a Bournemouth team in one season. A Bournemouth team that, no disrespect to them, aren't a great team, but he was a great player, and I think also again, you said Bournemouth fans won't be happy, but I think what I've seen on Twitter, I think Bournemouth fans are quite happy we've took them off the hands, and that's not because King's not good enough or they don't like him. I think it's just because I think when a team goes down, I think when a player of King's quality, I just think he's too good for the Championship.
Yeah, maybe.
I just don't think he belongs in that kind of league, and I think also he had what you see, for obviously we don't know, but he had a good relationship with Callum Wilson and Ryan Fraser, and obviously when them two are going, and again both going to the same club as Newcastle, and also I think King's head was turned with that 25 mil move to Manchester United, because I think that a move to them, as much as I don't like them, would probably turn most players' heads in the Premier League.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I think his head's been turned, and I think again it's a great signing. We've actually got it right in a January transfer window. We haven't gone out and spent a ridiculous amount of money on someone that won't play 38 games a season. But King, unlike Tosun, is a player that can come in and can beat Calvert-Lewin. He could probably take Calvert-Lewin out, and I think the good thing is they were tired. They're tired. Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, you can tell. Richarlison's tired, and he's not a winger. But King, what I've heard from Bournemouth fans on Twitter, he can play on the wing, and he does it just as good as he does up front.
Yeah, no, so, I agree, absolutely spot on. And I think you made a really, really good point there. Sorry, mate, you made a really, really good point there about bringing in Josh King for whether it be Dom or whether it be Richarlison. Is Josh King's got the ability for us to be able to take Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Richarlison out the team and say, right, okay, we're going to give you a rest and we're going to put Josh King in, and he scored nearly 50 Premier League goals. He's got that experience, he's got that quality. We didn't have that confidence in Cenk Tosun because we knew Cenk Tosun isn't good enough to play in a side that are challenging for the top 6 or the top 4 team, and I'm not saying that Josh King is good enough. We won't know that until he's played, but he certainly adds that bit of dynamism, he adds that bit of pace.
You want to hear a stat, Cam?
Go on.
Hear a stat. Cenk Tosun played over 30 games at Goodison Park.
Yeah.
Cup and the league, played well over 30 games. Josh King has scored the same amount of goals
Yeah.
at Goodison Park.
Yeah, I've heard
And
that
Josh
one, and
King was
exactly, and
that's shocking.
well, that just shows
That
the improvement that Josh King is on Cenk Tosun, and I also think he's a lot faster and he's a lot more suited to the Premier League than Cenk Tosun is. So I think it's a good deal all round for me personally.
not just that. Something I want to say is I think when we're losing to a Newcastle, I think you don't want a player who's slow coming on. You just don't.
Yeah.
Because their defenders are tired. When the defenders are tired, that's why teams like Liverpool are so lucky. And Man City. City lose a player like Sterling. You've got Mahrez who's quick, Jesus who's quick, Phil Foden who's quick. They've got so many good players to come off the bench.
Yeah.
And they can change a game even when they're 2-0 down. Arsenal. I know Aubameyang, he was on the bench last night and he came on and didn't do much. But if Aubameyang's ever on the bench or United have Dan James, teams bring on players who are on the bench and quick.
Yeah.
Not Aubameyang for Arsenal. Sorry, Reece Nelson. I meant they might not be amazing players, but when they've got the pace, teams will tire and it's easier to get past the ball around. And you've seen it when we played Newcastle at St James's Park. I think it was October, November, when we went through that losing spree. We were playing nice attacking football when Dom scored the header.
Yeah.
And then we were playing really good attacking football. And I remember it like it was yesterday. We gave the ball, funny enough, to Jonjo, and Jonjo put it through to Nkunku. And then Nkunku, what could have just slotted it through, but Tosun was just getting back up. Where King, in that position, King's there with the pace, and King would score.
Yeah.
Because he's got the pace.
I agree.
He stretches players out. So I think it's a good signing. And if he does stay on as well, it's good because I think if Moise Kean does come back, which I hope he does, because I know I've slated him in the past, but I do hope he comes back because the way he's looking in France, he's looking like what we signed. I know the French League might be easy, but it's still impressive when you're 19, 20 and you're competing with Mauro Icardi for the first team slot, Kylian, and you play with Kylian Mbappe and Neymar. So he's doing well, or you did take him out. And I think when you've got to take into account is if King signs, we've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who we know is a world-class striker. Moise Kean, who's got world-class potential, without a doubt. Josh King, who's got Premier League quality player. Yeah. And Richarlison, who can slot in there. And Ellis Sims. So again, we've got 4 or 5 strikers. That's a position that Man City used to have. Remember when you got the takeover a few years ago?
Yeah.
And they're like Negredo, Aguero. Obviously, none of them were on the level of the Man City strikers, but they had Balotelli, Dzeko, Aguero. So they had loads of options to pick from. So I'm buzzing with it. I really am. I'm happy. Because I don't think he's on as high wages as I think our fans thought. Because I don't think we would have. I don't really see it. It's not rational to let go Tosun, Balassi, players on high wages to bring in someone on high wage. It wouldn't really make sense to clear all wages out and then bring someone in on them wages. Absolutely. I think he's probably on about 90 grand or something about 60 to 90 grand with bonuses. Probably if he does good, then it does probably go up to his contract at Bournemouth. And then I think if he signs on in the summer, then I think his contract would be the same or even more than it was at Bournemouth. Absolutely. But I think it's a great start.
Absolutely. I agree. Absolutely spot on, mate. I think you're absolutely spot on about everything you've just said there. Look, I know you've got a couple of names to go through. What I was going to suggest is we could do another video within the next couple of days or so, or next week or so, or whenever you're ready, and we could go through those signings of who you're looking to bring in the summer, just to sort of separate it a little bit, because I think this has been a very, very, very good video, and certainly one that I've really, really enjoyed doing, and I think it'd be fantastic to sit down and do another sort of half an hour, 40-odd minute video about potential signings in the summer. But go on.
Can I just say to you what I said to you on Twitter messages? Is that I said,
go on,
with my Bernard theory, is I don't think Bernard had anything to do with the Josh King deal. I think that was all just things from journalists.
I think Bernard was more. I think the Josh King deal was more Anthony Gordon, and Anthony Gordon's future was relying on the King deal.
Bernard was a winger. And I think when I do believe the links to Perisic, I do. You can call me fickle, you can call me what you want, but I do think them links are true. Because if you notice, Perisic doesn't come and Bernard doesn't go.
Yeah.
On the same day, that's kind of a coincidence.
Well, yeah, fair enough. Well, I was going to mention Bernard, but look, the latest on Bernard is that the deal fell through with Al Nassr. Carlo Ancelotti's welcomed them back to the first team, and I dare say in the summer Bernard will be looking for another move out the football club, which is fair enough. And again, he's very unlikely to leave now. Obviously, the window's closed. There is still a couple of international windows open. But I can't see Bernard leaving now. I can see Bernard being a member of the squad going forward, certainly until the end of this season. But there you go. That is the January transfer window summed up in a nice little video there. Cal, just before we leave, mate, have you got anything else to add? And also, what would you give the window as a rating, sort of out of 10?
I think I'd say 8 out of 10 because it shows the ambition of the club to go out and let go of the crap. Well, I don't want to say crap, but the players who aren't good enough. And it shows that the club want to compete. And this is what you've got to do. To let go of the players who aren't good enough, you've got to compete. And I hate comparing us to them. But it's what Klopp did. Klopp went to Liverpool, and he did what Ancelotti did. They didn't go out and spend hundreds of millions in the first season.
Yeah.
Or the first window. They seen what they got. They used the squad, so they got a bearing of who's good enough and who's not good enough.
Yeah.
And then in the in 3 windows, them just clearing out the squad and then bringing in players who were good enough. And that's what Klopp did. And as much as I hate him and I hate Liverpool, you can't take that away from them. They have done good business over the years.
Yeah.
You know, they sold Coutinho for 160 million.
Yeah.
So they do good business, and we've done good business this summer. I mean, this window, we haven't let go anyone of that kind of money or for any money, but it's the players who we've let go. You know what I mean? For us, it doesn't really seem that the money's the problem. Obviously, transfer wise, because we've got one of the richest owners in the league.
Yeah.
But it seems the wages is a huge problem, and that's why we haven't signed a lot of players, because. And maybe we've been beaten for a few players as well because of the wages, but I'm happy 8 out of 10 with this window.
There you go. Spot on. I agree. I'm going to say about an 8.5 maybe out of 10. I think prior to bringing Josh King in, there was a lot of sort of flapping. There was a lot of worry about, right, you know, we need somebody else to add to this squad here. We need to have that push to get into a European competition. And look, whether we finish in a European competition at the end of the season is still in doubt. But I think Josh King brings a lot to this squad, a lot more than what we've maybe first originally thought. And I completely agree with Cal. The players that we've got rid of needed to go. We've freed up the wage bill a lot more, and hopefully some of them loan deals can turn into permanent deals in the summer for the likes of Cenk Tosun, John Joe Kenny, etc. So there you go. That is the video. Like I said, we will be doing another video shortly talking about players to come in the summer, positions in which we want to fill as well. So don't forget to look out for that one. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Don't forget to go and check out Cal in the description as well. Follow him on his social medias. Really do appreciate it. Thank you very much, Cal, for coming on. Really appreciate that, mate. Means a lot. And if you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. Overall,
Thanks for having me on.
No worries at all, mate. Welcome anytime. Overall, very good transfer window for Everton, in my opinion. Same, Cal's. Let us know your opinion in the comment section down below. What would you give the transfer window out of 10? And how do you rate the players that have left, and obviously the players that have joined, well, Josh King, that's joined Everton. Big thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new. Leave the video a like if you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.